MS Now international reporter Inez de la Cuetara is on the ground in Israel. Also with us, MS Now contributor and New York Times chief White House correspondent Peter Baker, and veteran Pentagon correspondent and author of Barbara Starr Reports on Substack, Barbara Starr. Inez, there in Tel Aviv, President Trump, Secretary Rubio are saying the most intense attacks are yet to come. Have things ramped up where you are? And what kind of barrage is Israel contending with?
Hey, Anna. Yeah, I mean, sirens have been blaring pretty much continuously since this first broke out. We are right now outside of Jerusalem, where an Iranian missile struck a synagogue, and you can see there's virtually nothing left of that synagogue. It was completely decimated. It's not just the synagogue. The surrounding buildings were impacted as well. As of just a few moments ago, there were still people here digging through the rubble, looking for their personal belongings. And then behind me, you can see these cars as well, completely wrecked. Obviously, this one flipped over, which gives you a sense of just how powerful these Iranian ballistic missiles are. Much more powerful, much more sophisticated than the rockets that Hamas was firing at Israel in the aftermath of October 7th. So because of that, extra precautions are underway here across the country to prepare for additional Iranian missiles. Earlier today, we were at an underground hospital near Tel Aviv, the the Sheba Medical Complex, They have moved virtually all of their operations underground. The thinking there being that, one, they want to be able to care for inpatients when those sirens go off. They want to keep those people safe. But two, they are also preparing for a prolonged war. And there's a sense that as this conflict escalates, there could be a mass casualty event. So they want to be prepared for that. Yesterday, we did hear from the Israeli prime minister saying they're going to keep fighting till the end. They are pushing for regime change. He is promising this is not going to be an endless war. And I will tell you, Israelis I've been speaking to here, when we look at what Americans have been saying, there are certainly those in the U.S. questioning why the U.S. is involved. But the Israelis I've been speaking to, for the most part, seem like they are on board with this operation against Iran. One man telling me, they've been pretty much continuously attacked since October 7th. They've been living with this threat for years now. And so they want the U.S. and Israel to finish the job.
And of course, there's so much destruction there from just that one attack that hit near Jerusalem. Was anybody killed or injured? And what more do we know about the Iranian drone attack targeting the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh?
Yeah, so here specifically, there were 9 people killed. We do know as of today the death toll in Israel has gone up. So we are now at 13 Israelis who've been killed since the beginning of the war. The death toll climbing across the region, over 787 people killed in Iran, according to the Iranian Red Crescent. And we also know that the number of American lives lost has also gone up. We are now at 6 U.S. service members who were killed in Kuwait during that first round of strikes, some of them dying from their injuries. So, lots of concerns there, and this conflict appearing to widen. Like you mentioned, it's not just U.S. military installations that are being targeted. Now, U.S. embassies across the region are being targeted. In Riyadh, we know the embassy in Kuwait also being targeted. And U.S. officials are calling on Americans to leave the Middle East, not to travel to the Middle East, of course, but to try and leave. The embassy here in Israel saying that it essentially cannot assist Americans with evacuations, but certainly, warnings against traveling to the region because this conflict is very much widening beyond Israel and Iran.
Inez de la Cuetara, thank you so much for bringing us the very latest from the region. Barbara, this campaign has now hit more than 1,200 targets inside Iran in the first 48 hours, according to CENTCOM. The Pentagon says they've been using everything from fighter jets to stealth bombers to Patriot systems to so-called suicide drones and much more. There were at least a dozen plus different military assets they've listed. So as somebody who has covered so many military campaigns, what stands out to you and how long will the U.S. be able to keep up this pace?
Well, what stands out to me is what most of us already know, I think, which is you can't kill your way to victory. If Iraq and Afghanistan taught America anything, that would be the lesson. And victory, what is victory here? Because we have seen a number of conflicting statements from the administration about what it is they're trying to accomplish. Is it regime change? We've seen both sides of that. We've seen yes, and we've seen doesn't really matter. It's up to the Iranians to do that. Is it to get rid of Iran's ballistic missiles? Do they pose a threat in the region? Well, certainly they do, but they've been out there for years. The U.S. is well aware of that threat. I think one of the biggest challenges now, as this becomes a regional war against and including civilian targets, is how to protect all of these targets. And we saw that initially in that attack in Kuwait, where 6 Americans were killed, 6 military personnel. They were apparently killed, at least some of them, when they were inside a trailer that was operating as a makeshift operations center with almost no protection from an overhead threat, a drone or a missile coming in by all accounts. And that's really such a terrible thing for their families to know. The Pentagon under Pete Hegseth, all about best equipped troops. Well, in this case, no, they weren't.
Peter, the White House has offered basically a grab bag of justifications for this war. Here was the latest reasoning we heard out of the administration, as well as Speaker Johnson, who was briefed yesterday. Take a listen.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Israel was determined to act in their own defense here, with or without American support. If Israel fired upon Iran and took action against Iran to take out the missiles, then they would have immediately retaliated against U.S. personnel and assets.
Peter, have you ever seen an administration launch a preemptive war with this sort of third-party defense reasoning?
No, it's rather striking because, of course, this is not what they said over the weekend when the president first launched this attack. Now they seem to be blaming or attributing this to Israel, which is only inflaming, of course, the divide, especially on the MAGA right, over Israel's influence in Washington policymaking. I think the State Department later tried to pull back a little bit and said, well, we would have gone in anyway. But they're all over the map in terms of this. What are the goals here? Is the goal regime change? The president said so over the weekend. Pete Hegseth said yesterday, no, it's not. Is the goal to go after the nuclear program? Well, the president told us, as recently as last week, that the program had been obliterated. So why are you going after a program that you obliterated? He hasn't really explained that. Ballistic missiles, fine, but a lot of experts say they're still years away from having the kind of missiles that could hit the United States that the president was talking about. When the president gave his explanation, he gave a grab bag of grievances that the United States has had against Iran over 40 years, 50 years, all of them true, but no explanation about why now, why at this time. So Rubio's comments are interesting in terms of timing at the very least.
Yeah, Secretary Rubio also said one central goal is to take out Iran's short-range missile capability. Barbara, that contrasts with what President Trump said hours earlier, that this was really about Iran's long-range threat and that they were trying to develop a weapon that could eventually hit the U.S. If the White House can't even clearly explain what started this war, how can they be clear about how it ends? What does success even look like?
Well, that's the issue in military operations, isn't it? Very easy to get in, very tough to get out of them unless you have a clear end state. Now, as we all know, we've got this, as Peter said, this grab bag of measurements of what they want to do. But how do you know when you've achieved victory? Unless you're going to get Iran to capitulate. And that might be an interesting question to look at. Is the goal here to get the regime to utterly collapse and basically capitulate to Israel and the U.S.? That would be the clearest outcome, but don't count on it. I think it's very unlikely you're going to see that kind of end state take place.
The question about imminent threat is a big one, Peter. Lawmakers say this administration has offered zero evidence of an imminent threat from Iran. And of course, they didn't go to Congress at this point to get war authorization. And two U.S. officials corroborated that with MS Now related to what we're hearing from lawmakers. So is the U.S. government a credible messenger on this war right now?
Well, it's hard to be credible if you can't keep your story straight, right? If you can't have a consistent message, and so far it hasn't been consistent. I actually think that the reason why the United States decided to go in now, at least one of them, is not that Iran poses an imminent threat, but that in fact it's actually weak because it's back on its heels because of last year's strikes. It was an opportunistic time when the United States and Israel could go in and finish the job as they saw it without much risk to American forces.
Peter Baker and Barbara Starr, as always, we appreciate you both. Thanks.